The Brown Park Podcast is brought to you by Grow Clinics. You can go to growclinics.com.au to book a free consultation or for more information.
So we're going into this podcast today and you sound like absolute crap.
No, look, I'm a little bit sick. I've taken the Codral. I'm okay. No, I sound terrible, right?
Horrible.
Well, I've had this thing for about 4 weeks and the show must go on. So the show goes on. So it's the Dion show today.
No one needs that in their life.
The Brown Park Podcast.
Question.
Yes.
Emojis.
Oh, yeah.
What is the most passive-aggressive emoji that you come across in your daily texting and messaging?
I don't know. I'm not a big emoji user. I'll use it for laughing more than anything.
I don't know. I just find that if I send a message to someone and they just send back a thumbs up, I'm like,
yeah,
I need more than a thumbs up.
But I do that to you all the time.
I'm trying to bring it up in a passive-aggressive way.
The Brown Park Podcast.
So I'll do today's intro because you sound like crap.
Thank you.
My pleasure. So today's guest is a woman by the name of Nicole Madigan. She is a journalist and she has penned her own book called Obsession, and we're going to get into it right now.
Nicole Madigan, welcome to the show.
Welcome.
Thank you so much.
Your story is very interesting. I mean, you've worked in the media business for a long time, but who would have thought you would have ended up writing a book on yourself about your story that you've had to endure over the past few years?
Yeah, never in a million years. I mean, I've always thought, I'm a writer, so I like writing. Writing a book wasn't out of the realms of possibility, but certainly not about myself.
I mean, you still write now. You still write for the News Limited, and your articles are all over about everything.
Yeah,
but you yourself have kind of become the headline in the last few weeks with the book's release and your incredible story of this woman that just stalked you to no end.
Yeah, it's been a really interesting response, actually. I would have never predicted such a high level of interest in this sort of topic. I mean, it was interesting to me because I'd been through it, but there's psychological aspects and things like that. I've been really surprised by how interested people have been in it.
And I'd say that I was surprised when Christo spoke about bringing you on the podcast and he said this woman has had a stalker. At that time, it didn't compute in my mind that it was a woman to be stalking, because I just associated a stalker with a male stalking a female or a female stalking a male. So that's where your story was really interesting when it came to me.
Yeah, it is unusual, and the research shows it's a rare thing as well. It's not a thing to happen, and it's certainly not something you ever would think would happen. I just live a fairly normal life. I'm a journalist, but I'm not a high-profile journalist or anything like that. I don't attract any attention in any way. So it was a really strange thing to live through.
Okay, so let's go back. You were in a relationship that broke up, and then you've discovered your current husband, or your life husband. Let's just his name's Adam. And I was reading your story. It was like grand final day, AFL grand final day, when all of a sudden your phone lit up.
Yeah, so that day, for a lot of people, I think that would just be a normal day. We were just watching the footy. All our family were over and friends and things like that. But for me, I'd come out of, I was on the other side of what happens with separations and divorce. It's not always easy, and mine wasn't. So I'd moved past that and I'd met Adam, and we'd fallen into a really nice rhythm with our kids and family and things like that. So it was just a really nice day and a really pivotal moment for me, which, it took a turn that night after everyone had left and headed home. And we did post a couple of photos on Facebook. Adam's not much of a social media user, but he was very excited that night. His team had won the footy. And he posted a couple of photos, and everyone's in blue and yellow because he's a West Coast Eagles fan. Yeah, and then we're just doing the dishes and cleaning up, and I got this message request, and it all started from there. So it was just a really gross kind of mean message. And
how long had you and Adam been together by this stage?
A few months, several months. So, probably around 6 months.
Yeah. And I mean, and like I've read in your story, the merging of the two families is always a complicated issue. So you know, introducing your side to the new side and his side to your side, and then getting them all to get along would have been tough enough without what you were about to go through.
Exactly. Yeah. Because you know, when you go into a relationship, when you have kids, you know, you're thinking about more than just yourself. So, you know, you want yourself to be happy, but you've also got to think about your kids and their happiness and ultimately their safety as well.
So was it Adam's ex-partner, so the wife of the father of his children that was stalking, or who was it?
The father of his children.
Sorry, mother. Jesus, that's early on a Sunday morning. Hold on.
Yeah. So no, it wasn't. So
Okay, right.
This is someone he had dated kind of on and off after his divorce, which was
Right.
His was he'd been divorced a long time, and she's someone he had dated before he and I met.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. So no kids involved between those two. Thank God.
Fortunately, yeah.
Yeah.
So what was the text message?
So the text message was basically, you know, how do you like my sloppy seconds? You know, enjoy sleeping in the bed. We fucked in, excuse my language, all that sort of stuff. And it came in a flurry. So this one wasn't in her name though. She had some fake account like Adam is a loser or some kind of concocted name that she'd put up and no profile picture or anything like that.
There was bravery behind it, obviously, then.
Yeah. I mean, that's how it started. And in all honesty, when I looked at it, I sort of thought, you know, I did wonder, is this his ex-wife? Like, geez, I'm in trouble if this is his mother, his kids. But, you know, when I showed him, he sort of knew who it was straight away or had a good solid feeling.
Yeah.
And then within a couple of weeks, she was messaging me again from her own account anyway. So she didn't make it any secret.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
There was no warming up to it either. No, just sort of making initial contact. She just went straight for it straight away.
That's exactly. Yeah. And in fact, that night, you know, making it even weirder was like a couple of hours after she finished sending all those messages, we were kind of recovering from it all. And then I got a text message and it was my ex-husband to just say, I mean, we've named her Carissa in the book. That's not her name, but that's using. And yeah, his message just said, Carissa says hi. So like that told me that this person that I did not know had somehow knew who my ex-husband was and contacted him and said,
Oh my God. Yeah.
who knows what? I didn't know at that point.
And did you ignore it? I mean, how did you react when you got the first text messages? Did you just ignore it or did you engage in it?
No, I just ignored. I was so in shock. Like, I guess, you know, I'm in my late 30s at this point, but, you know, I've not long been out of, you know, just a long-term family life, you know, so dating and all of that wasn't my scene at all. So
Yeah.
I never got into dating apps or anything like that. I was just happy to live a kind of cruisy, kind of boring life. So when I got those, I felt quite confronted. You know, I'm not used to that kind of confrontation at all. Also, that kind of language and gross content. So I was just more emotional that night than anything. Until I got that message from my ex, which made me feel kind of more nervous. But yeah, look, I didn't respond to any of it. I was just sort of talking to him about who on earth is this person and what are we dealing with here? Like trying to get some information from him. Yeah, so no, I didn't engage with it. And in fact, in the whole 3 years that this happened, I only engaged with her once, you know, on one occasion to see if that had an impact and it didn't. But outside of that, I didn't do anything. And that's something that I regret now because of how it unfolded. You know, I thought if I ignored it, it would go away.
Well, and that's what you would think, right? I mean, if you don't give it any light or give it any power, that they'd eventually give up and go away. But no.
That's exactly right. Yeah, that's exactly right. You know, there was a break in there. We were advised by police at one point to send her a letter to warn her that if this continued, we would seek legal action and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And Adam wrote that letter because at that early stage, she was messaging both of us quite a lot. And we thought that worked. You know, there was probably a good 5 months of just no contact whatsoever. And then it started back up again, but only with me. You know, she never contacted Adam again after that.
What was she wanting to have happen? Was she wanting to spook you and get Adam back? And did she think that was the behavior that would actually do it?
That's a good question. So in that first kind of 6 months where it was just continuous messages and it was all centered around Adam and I and how him not, you know, terrible things about him and me not being worthwhile and all of that sort of thing. And also messaging him with, you know, she was sort of vary from kind of groveling kind of messages to really horrible, threatening abuse kind of thing. So it seemed to me at that point that she wanted to break us up for whatever reason. But then when it kind of restarted after those 5 months, her kind of approach shifted. It was really just, it wasn't much about Adam so much anymore. It was really just an attack on me, continuous attacks on my physical appearance and my kids and work, and this like always alluding to something being about to happen or her being about to do something. So it was almost like just to cause fear, I guess, or just, yeah.
How did she reach out to you? Was it like Instagram? Was it personal messaging? Was it WhatsApp? There's just so many different methods of being able to contact somebody now.
Yeah. So initially in those first 6 months, it was all Facebook. So Messenger from her personal account, about 3 other accounts in her own name, but that were different, fake accounts in other names. She contacted my mum through Facebook at that point and created a fake account in my name as well, like using my profile picture, and sent herself messages from that account, screenshotted those and sent those around as well. But that's what triggered police in the first instance, because, you know, that worried me a bit.
Was she trying to implicate you and suggest that you were doing this back to her so that she would have some sort of comeback?
Yeah. Like,
Didn't see that coming. Righto.
Yeah. So she'd screenshotted this conversation between me and her, using the type of language that she would use. So it's me sending her photos of, you know, she'd obviously taken this from my cover shot on my Facebook, had a Christmas photo of the family. And she'd sent that to herself saying, get the hint, bitch, he's mine, like this kind of stuff that I would never say or look like. And she'd, screenshotted those and sent them all to Adam.
I was going to say, couldn't you just block the accounts? But I guess social media has to step up at some point with all these fake accounts being created. There's got to be something there that can be done where people just can't go creating fake accounts just to...
New one. Yeah, because I changed my approach once she moved over to Instagram later, but with these Facebook accounts, we just kept blocking them. But she just made new ones. And that's quite easy to do. You just make a new one and start sending messages. So there's not a lot you can do to stop that. And then eventually she moved on to text messages. I got a bunch of text messages from a couple of different phone numbers. She made it still quite clear who she was, so you could get the language by then. And I tried police again at that point because I thought maybe, I thought my understanding was that the laws had changed. So if you get a SIM card, even if it's a prepaid, I thought you had to put all your personal details.
Yeah. You do, don't you?
I think you do. You know, I haven't done one for quite a while, but I called the police and they did come over, and I sort of said, you know, this has been happening for the better part of 6 months more. Now I'm getting text messages, so I can give you a name if you can verify who it is, and maybe do something about it. But yeah, they didn't deem it worthy of the resources required to go and compel a phone company to provide that information. So
God.
Yeah. And I guess, you know, when you get that kind of response from police, you do just withdraw again and just sort of say, like, there's nothing I can do. I'm just going to have to put up with this. Yeah. And so I did.
It's almost like a helpless situation, right? The police can't help you. You're in this situation. And were you fearful when you left the house? Did you think that she was always there or that she is capable of doing something to you?
That point, so this is about the halfway point, I was more fearful of what she might do to me from there were two things. You know, I was worried about what she might do to my work and reputation because she seemed quite willing to contact people that I knew.
Yeah.
And, you know, I was worried about maybe the impact on my relationships as well. I mean, fortunately, they're all quite strong and my inner circle, I had told about this. So my mum and obviously Adam knew everything that was going on as well. So I was more worried about that and just dealing with the impact of this constant intrusion. So, you know, continuous messages. Every time I'd hear that sound of my phone, it really just set the anxiety up. You know, I was waiting for it all the time. So it was on my mind all the time. Down the track, once she moved to a more public forum using Instagram, over time she started to write or publish quite personal information. So I did become more concerned that she might be physically around because she was starting to know quite a lot about where we were and what we were doing.
Oh, God. Hey, I just want to follow the timeline just a little bit because So there's AFL Grand Final day, and that sort of started. How long did that go before you decided, okay, we're going to try and involve the police?
So it was about 6 months.
Yeah. So you put up with 6 months of harassment.
6 months.
Yeah.
Yeah, 6 months of it. And I called the police when she made that it made that fake account in my name, because I thought, look, maybe we're bordering on illegal activity here. I didn't know, though. So we called police, not in an official way. Adam had a friend who was in the police force, so we called him.
Yeah.
And his advice was to not make an official report, because that can sometimes anger their
Stoke the fire.
make things worse. And look, I mean, that can happen. I mean, we've seen that in really tragic domestic violence cases where people have, left situations or got a DVO in place, and the consequence after that is catastrophic. So I can see why they say that, but at the same time, it leaves people in quite a helpless position. Anyway, he's the one that suggested that we write this letter to say, this behaviour must stop, don't contact us, or we'll take further action. And we did that. And as I say, we thought it worked. We thought this has worked because it was quiet for about 5 months.
That would have been a relief, obviously. You would have been like, oh, God, this has stopped her. We can just move on with our life. Exactly. Job done.
It's a slow process. Like, it took a few weeks before you sort of checking and you're on alert, and then you just start to go, okay, like, that advice worked. So she's gone too far. She's had a warning and she's disappeared.
Brown Park.
Hey, one thing about Grow Clinics that I've recently discovered, and thanks to them for supporting our podcast, is that they're now doing mustache transplants.
Excellent.
Okay, so I'm just going to call it right. I've never been able to grow a lot of facial hair.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what I have currently on my face is probably a good 2 to 3 weeks worth of growth. It just does not grow.
Bum fluff.
Some people have it worse than what I do, and now Grow is making it possible to regrow your beard and mustache.
Not even regrow, just grow.
Just grow. So if that's something that you might be interested in, as well as a hair transplant, then make sure you go and have a chat to the team at Grow Clinics. We both have done it and we both swear by it.
Yeah, changed my life. It's so good.
The team there will give you a free consultation online. You can go to the website growclinics.com.au/brownpark, put all your details in there, and have a chat to the specialist about what you can do about your receding hairline if you have it.
The hardest part about the whole process is making that initial call. So you're better off to have the uncomfort of the phone call than the uncomfort of insecurities.
That's right. Well done.
Thank you. I might move on to motivational speaking as well.
growclinics.com.au/brownpark.
The Brown Park Podcast.
So can you remember where you were and what you were doing when you got that next text message?
Yeah, I can, because coincidentally, we all moved in together. We moved the families in together to where I was living, and we'd had this, we were having this kind of celebration dinner, and we'd made these little sliders, and we had this gigantic table, and all the kids were, 'cause there's 7 of us, so we had the kids all around. We'd had this really fun dinner and made a really, special time of it. And then the kids all went to do their own thing, and I heard my phone, I heard the text message, but I didn't pick it up straight away because I was just trying to enjoy the moment. You have those moments you want to remember. So I was doing that. And then later on, I just walked past, picked it up, and saw it then. And immediately I was like, I'm not doing this again. So I walked straight outside and just dialed, hit call to the number that sent me a text. I thought, I'm just going to call it.
Right. Yeah.
Good on you. Yeah.
Burst of bravery, and thought, I'll just call the number. But it rang out, and there was no.
How weak is that, though, right? You can send this person all the texts in the world, but you won't even talk to me. Like, that's weak. Come on.
Yeah, I just wanted to ring and say, that didn't work. And then the next week, I got text from a different number, and I did the same thing. I called it, but it just rang out and went to voicemail. And I did go as far as, so I called the police again after that, as I told you before, and they didn't do much that time. They just said, keep a diary of what's going on, call 000 if you're in danger. So in other words, this is not our problem. That's what it felt like to me. And so I was desperately trying to think of ways that I could tackle it. And I came across this is how desperate I became at that point. I came across this little private investigator page, and I wasn't about to hire one or anything like that, but they offered this service that you could identify phone numbers.
Yeah.
$110 or something like that. And I thought, oh, I'm just going to give that a go. Like, I'll try, and if I can get a name attached to it, maybe then the police will do something. So I did do that, and she was really nice, this woman. She did both phone numbers for the price of one and tried to track them down. But yeah, ultimately she said she couldn't. That her feeling based on whatever research she'd done was that they were, like, she called them burner phones. Sounds ridiculous.
Yeah.
Talking about it.
Like drug dealers use them.
Yeah,
right. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel silly even saying it, but that's how she described it. So on the one hand, it was mental confirmation of what was going on, but it didn't help me much because nothing could be done about it.
I mean, how did your mental health go when you got that re-engagement?
Terrible. I just thought, I just don't want to do this again, because it was really impacting me and my nature. I'm a fairly, I'm an overthinker, just like the best of us, but I'm fairly relaxed and just go about my regular life. So it was creating a lot of kind of anxiety and making me a bit highly strung, I felt. Yeah, so with that up again, I had a bit of a panic attack. Like, I don't want to again. Yeah, so then that kind of stopped for a couple of weeks, and, I don't know, coincidentally, whenever she recontacted me after a break, it was always while I was doing something kind of momentous for me, because when the Instagram stalking started, I was packing up my house because we'd bought a house and we were about to move from, my previous house to our new house, and we were just having a big pack-up day. And I got this. I hadn't really been triggered by Instagram alerts because she had stayed away from Instagram, but I got some kind of notification and I picked it up. It said I'd been tagged in a post by her, so her name was used again. She wasn't afraid of hiding that. And she put this post up it was a picture of some kind of homemade, I don't know, pie or something like that. And it was like, oh, I call this the Madigan. And she'd put some disgusting description of why that was.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. It's made from leftovers, soggy bottom or some.
For God's sake.
Yeah. And tagged me in it. But as silly as that sounds to say to you, I panicked because she'd taken a public approach with this one. And it also finished off with, you'll be hearing a lot more from me with all these, giving the finger emojis. So I took that as a warning. I was quite panicked, and I quickly figured out how to detag myself from a phone. I did that. And then that was the start of this real escalation, I suppose, where it was just continuous posting from her publicly about me. And that went on for, another good 6 or more months, culminating in her posting my address and my wedding details and, personal information like that.
Scott, moving day sucks on its own, but to throw that on top of it.
Took the edge off that day. So, again, so that was happening a lot. It spoils a nice time.
So, wow. So you went back to obviously you went back to the police once it escalated again, or
it took me quite a while. It took another more than 6 months before I went back, and that's just because I really didn't think there was anything I could do. I'd been twice, and I just didn't feel that they would take it seriously. That's just what I thought, and I really just went into. I didn't tell anyone about these posts, apart from my mum and Adam. I didn't want anyone to look at them. I didn't want anyone to know about them. I just wanted it to kind of go away, which of course it didn't. It just got worse. So once she put my home address in, and some posts sort of suggesting that she knew where we'd been, she knew where she'd put a post up about where we were getting married and when. So that's when I started thinking about calling the police again, although I was still unsure of whether I would get anywhere. And eventually I got contacted by somebody on Instagram that I didn't know, which I assumed was probably her at first. But they'd reached out to me, said they'd identified me from her posts and had also been a victim of hers 10 years prior, and they were related to her. And that message, I guess, was the start of a dialogue between the two of us that really opened my eyes to the fact that I wasn't overreacting. Like, this woman was quite afraid. You could tell by her. She was writing to me. So I just thought, well, maybe I do have something to be afraid of. And I went back to the police at that point.
It sounds like there's a massive grey area in this whole stalking piece when the law can step in. I mean, this may be jumping way forward, but when can the police actually do something? Do they have to wait till something really horrible happens, or when can they help you?
Well, in theory, they can help you when they know that it's happening, but it's proving that it's happening is the tricky thing. So, or having them go to the effort to find that proof, is another thing. The first 2 times I went, no one was really interested in it. The last time I took a different approach. I didn't call the police. I put in a cybercrime report, and it was a lengthy one. Like I wrote a solid several pages of what had been happening over the entire time, in the hope that might get somebody's attention. And it did. He got referred to my local police station, and it was months later before a police officer called me. It was a female police officer, and she was totally different to the other. She just took a totally different approach. When I was talking to her, her reaction was one that told me that I was reporting a crime. It felt like I was reporting a crime for the first time. She took it seriously enough, but required a whole lot of work from me to provide the evidence. That was up to me to do. It wasn't up to anyone else. They didn't do it. I just had to go back and gather everything that I'd kept over those 3 years, which was everything. Luckily I had kept everything.
So 3 years this went on.
3 years.
And you had to build your own case. So you had to build the case and hand it to the police on a platter.
Yeah.
Go do something.
Exactly. And even to the point where, because with stalking, it involves, it's a pattern of behaviour over a period of time. So over that time, perpetrators are able to establish, a language between the two of you. Over time, they can send the same messages without being so direct, because you'll know what certain phrases mean, or what certain nicknames, or that sort of thing, or when something's a threat and when it's not. So I even had the really, joyful task of picking a couple of these horrible nicknames that she'd, given me, like rat face or whatever it was, and going through everything and linking them all together to say, well, this is why this nickname is for me, and this is why this one is for me. So it's a big, difficult and confronting and terrible activity to do.
It reminds me of like a Hollywood movie where they've got the board and the red string that just sort of links all the different things to one another.
Yeah. So it's traumatic as well as humiliating, and but it's also necessary. I wouldn't have gotten anywhere without doing that.
It's almost like you should relive it, though, right? You'd have to go back over 3 years and pull it all together again, and then hand it over. It's like, God, you've just gone through that whole 3 years again.
Yeah. It's a really difficult thing to do. But I guess, it's important that people know, though, that, they should be keeping copies of anything that's negative that comes their way, just in case. But I suppose people aren't thinking, if you get a nasty text, this might lead to a long-term stalking incident. You just don't think that way. And I can't tell you why I screenshotted and kept everything from the beginning. I just did.
Because you're a journalist.
Probably, yeah. It's probably just, in your nature. But the police all told me that, a lot of people don't do that. When they get something offensive sent to them, they delete it because they don't want it around them. They don't want to see it. So when it becomes a pattern, it's hard to establish that or prove it.
And at any point, did you want to call this person out on social media to try and get some power back, or you
I did.
Kept away?
Yeah, I thought about it. I thought about some behaviours that were totally, uncharacteristic and beneath me, in my opinion. It's one of the emotions that I found really shocking was the level of anger and rage that I felt. It's hard to talk about anger and rage because it's not becoming. No one likes to talk about it. Sadness and distress is easy to talk about, but moments when I was just so angry because I was angry at her for doing it, and I was angry at me for just letting it happen.
Yeah, get it.
It's so impacted by it because people tell you it doesn't matter what someone's saying, or don't look and switch off, but it's very hard to do. It's when it's coming at you like that, and it can eat away at you from a self-esteem perspective, whether it should or it shouldn't. and in a number of different ways. So, you know, I found it, it was a difficult thing.
Well, props to you, because I reckon I would have lost it at some point, and I mean, I would have thrown fuel on the fire and made it all worse. So, you and your level head.
But you know, maybe not, because it didn't serve me very well. I mean, it didn't. I mean, ultimately, yes, I did get an outcome from police, and I can say, well, you know, lucky I kept my moral high ground and everything else, and I set a good example for the kids and all of that. But it, you know, ignoring it and sitting there didn't stop it by any means. That being said, the one time I did send a message back was about halfway through, and it was a wishy-washy kind of messages. I tried to say, like, you know, why don't you gather up some dignity and just leave us alone. You know, I tried to say something a bit in the middle, but it came back at me quite, you know, there was a couple of new accounts that afternoon, and because I'd been so beaten down by it, I kind of panicked again and said, you know, that police officer was right. Like, it's just going to make things worse. So just ignore.
Brown Park.
Grow Clinics are proud sponsors of this podcast, and I would suggest going to check out their website, which is growclinics.com.au, because you can take the Grow quiz and you answer 3 simple questions and they'll match you with the most suitable hair loss solution for your particular scalp.
If you follow along with the Grow Diaries, I think helps a lot. And I believe you had one, didn't you?
I do. grow.diary.christo. Go there on Instagram and you can see my whole journey.
It's absolutely amazing. And like you say, it's real world results. What you see in those diaries is exactly the journey that you go on. And I think what they're doing great with these diaries is everybody's journey is a little bit different. But I guess both you and I can attest that it is real, it does work, and you get hair at the end of it.
100%. growclinics.com.au, because hair growth is simple with Grow.
The Brown Park Podcast.
So there's a couple of questions I want to ask. How did your marriage handle this situation? How did you handle it with the kids? Were the kids aware of what was going on, or did you try and shelter them from it a bit?
Yeah, the kids were fortunately young enough to not be on social media, so they were. There wasn't a risk of them stumbling across it until towards the end, when my eldest son was, you know, starting to get a bit older.
Yep.
And wanting to be on social media. Unfortunately, as well, because she had contacted my ex, and for a little while, he entertained her, and my son kind of heard a little bit of that. So he had some exposure to it, you know, unfortunately, that I just really explained away in really simple terms.
Yeah.
I didn't go into any detail or anything like that, of course. So the kids were largely kept out of it. In terms of Adam and I, look, you know, it's one of those things that any kind of stressful situation puts pressure on a relationship.
Oh, yeah.
Ours was a new one and involving a third party. So it's difficult, you know. So we had a lot of big conversations, but it was more me just having, stress attacks or meltdowns, you want to call it, or just being really distressed about it and being able to offload those feelings. And sometimes they probably, you know, the feelings I was feeling about her, I probably did project them towards him a couple of times, but, you know, he was always really supportive and, you know, we went through it together.
That would only be natural, though, because it'd have to be some sort of resentment going, well, if I hadn't met you, this would have come into my life. But
yeah, exactly.
Ultimately, the relationship must have been worth it.
Well, you know, we're married now. So
yeah,
in fact, it was our 2-year anniversary yesterday. So yeah, it's worked out. And yeah, it was worth it. But yeah.
There's some valuable lessons in all of this, right? Like social media and people messaging you. I mean, people have unprecedented access to you at any point in time. So I guess what we need to learn from situations like this is you do need to keep even one message of bullying or whatever, or stalking or whatever, you really actually need to keep that. And maybe that's what people need to learn from this, is to go keep a track record of this type of thing, because you don't know where it's going to lead.
I really think that's true. I think that the lesson I've learned and the advice I would give anyone is that anything uncomfortable that you receive, or anything that even makes you feel uncomfortable at all, just listen to your instincts and keep a copy. You don't have to look at it ever again, but if it's there, it's there. And really, as soon as something makes you feel fearful, I think you should immediately go to the police. If they don't listen to you, go back again or go to another one.
Have you spoken to this woman at all throughout the whole course of it? Never had a conversation with her? Never met her?
Never met her. So the only encounter I had with her, and I write about this in the book, was about almost 12 months before that day at the football grand final party. I was at a kids footy get together. So Adam's son and plays AFL, and so does mine. And that's how Adam and I met, in fact. Yeah. I was at a football catch up with the kids, and Adam was there, but we didn't know each other very well. So I didn't have much to do with him that day. But I was in the midst of the aftermath of my separation and things like that. So I was just worn out and tired, and I was just going through the motions for my son, really. I was there. And the kids were all playing cricket, and I was taking photos, just for something to do. And then I was scrolling through them. And I had noticed earlier that there was a woman with a couple of kids in the area that we were in, but separate from us. So I'd noticed her there, but I didn't think too much about it. Anyway, As I'm going through these photos, I hear someone say, "Are you taking photos of Adam?" And I kind of looked up, and I saw that woman, and she was just walking past me. Like, she hadn't stopped, but she was walking past me. And I was wondering, I didn't know if she was talking to me, and I kind of mumbled, I'm taking photos of kids. And then I looked at the woman next to me, because there was another mum there, and she kind of pulled her face like, that was weird. Yeah. And then I didn't think about it anymore after that. And that evening, when I was at home just by myself, the kids were in bed, I got a message request from her under her name to say, "Oh, sorry, I didn't mean anything by that comment today. I was just wondering if you were taking photos for the footy page." And I kind of thought, it must be someone that knows the footy people. To reply back saying, "Oh, good, no worries, I'll see you next time." So there was that encounter, but outside of that, no.
See you next time, all right?
Yeah.
See you next time, yeah. Exactly. And funnily enough, even when I got those first messages, my mind didn't immediately go back to that. It was only that, once Adam had mentioned that name, I thought, this happened, But
where's it at now?
So the police, to their credit, they really followed up with all of the things that I provided them. And it was a very long period of time. Each time they'd try to call her or turn up at her house, she wasn't there or she wouldn't call back. And so it went over for a really long time. But eventually, they were able to charge her with unlawful stalking, which absolutely floored me when they rang me to tell me that, because I still probably hadn't put that label on what had happened.
Wow.
Like, I still had that same kind of understanding of stalking, like most people do, I guess, that it's someone, in your front yard looking through your window or that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I was really shocked, but also really relieved and kind of validated the fact that, I had these big emotions and it had such a big impact. I felt like, maybe I'm not so crazy after all for reacting like that. Because you do have that feeling throughout, am I overreacting? Why is this impacting me so much? Should it be, those sorts of feelings, but it did. So yeah, she was ultimately charged, and we had to wait for the court case to see whether she was going to plead guilty or not. And she adjourned that several times. So it's, another big chunk of a lot of months went by. And she ultimately pleaded guilty to that charge, and was given a 2-year probation order. And I was given a 2-year restraining order. So it was relatively speaking to what I've seen other people go through, it was a pretty good outcome for me.
Awesome. I've read or heard you say that the stalkers fall into 5 main categories.
Yes.
What are they?
Yeah. So the first one and the most, I guess, common one, because they make up about 50%, is the rejected stalker. So that's where we're thinking about domestic violence situations and things like that. Yeah. So they've been rejected in some way. It's not always a romantic partner, though. It could be, a workplace or friendship or something like that. So they've been rejected and they're pursuing that person to get that relationship back.
Mm-hmm.
Alternatively, they've failed in that and they're angry. So that's the first one. The second one is the resentful stalker, and the experts tell me that Carissa fell under that category. So that's someone who's just plain angry and wants revenge or retribution or payback and wants to punish someone for some reason. So the goal is upset,
Right.
not to get something, but just to cause
It was mayhem.
fear, in a person's life. And then you've got what they call the intimacy seeker. So that might be someone who's got a sort of delusional love, or thinks they're in love with someone, usually a celebrity or someone of a higher status. So they've created this relationship in their mind and proactively seek out that relationship. So they might be the ones that turn up with flowers and act shocked that the person doesn't want them there, and they can be genuinely confused by that. So you find that celebrity stalkers fall into that category. And then you've got what they've called the incompetent suitor, and that's someone who's similar to that, but it's short-term gratification. So, you might have met someone at a pub and you think you want to take that person home, and they rebuff you, and you just hit them hard and intensely for a shorter period of time until you get that outcome, or until you don't ultimately. But that's sort of a short flurry of attacks.
Yeah.
Intimacy seeker can go on for years. And then the last one is the predator, and that's the one we kind of think about from the movies, where it's a precursor to probably a violent attack. So they're, tracking a victim, or they might know where they live, or, they're an unidentified stalker. Normally, they're not letting their identity be known, whereas most of these other ones, you know who they are.
And just before we let you go, how are you now? Are you good? Are you in a good space now?
Yeah, I mean, it's an incredible relief to get that protection. It really changed immediately. I felt that sense of like, I can breathe because I'm going to have a break from this.
Yeah.
So it's good. I mean, what lingers though is that feeling that is something going to happen all the time. That doesn't go away. And I think, people who have engaged in this kind of behavior for a long time still have ways of letting you know that they're around without breaking any laws or being too obvious. I'll just say that. But look, overall, I've been really lucky because I've got those protections in place, but a lot of people haven't. And that's why I'm just really passionate about talking about it, because there are just so many people that this is happening to, and they just sit and let it happen because they feel like they've got no other choice. And these people that act like this, they just do it because they can. It's so easy to do.
And then what advice would you give somebody if they feel they're being stalked or it's heading that way?
I would say listen to your instinct, and as soon as you feel uncomfortable, tell somebody at least, whether it's your mum, your friend, the police, tell somebody so that it's not eating away at you inside, because it's incredibly stressful to have that fear and anxiety and self-questioning and self-gaslighting. It can really impact your mental health dramatically. And I also think go to police. And if the police won't listen to you, I feel go to a different police officer. I think don't say, it's natural to withdraw when you get that negative response from somebody, whether it's the police or your friend, or someone cracks a joke like, isn't that funny, or just get off social media. But someone will listen. You just have to keep trying.
Well, Nicole, your book is called Obsession. We'll make sure that we put the links of where you can get it in the show notes of this podcast. And thanks again so much for joining us, and we really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Brown
Pock.
I mean, for me, I always assumed the stalker was the movie scene ones where, it's a guy waiting in the bushes looking in the window, or a woman following a man, or that type of thing. So I'd never actually even thought of a stalker to be like this.
Well, considering she's never met the person.
Yeah.
Never had any personal interaction at all. It's all been online. If I was the husband in that situation, I'd feel a lot of guilt bringing that into the partnership. So for them to be able to work through that, I think is a testament to their relationship.
I think maybe too, that whole scenario maybe even brought them closer together and maybe strengthened the relationship, and made like that the person that was trying to cause havoc may have inadvertently made them stronger.
Yeah. All of the details for Nicole are in the show notes of this podcast. Once again, I want to say thank you to Grow Clinics for their ongoing support of the show, and we will be back next week, and I hopefully will have a voice back. Good luck.
Brown Podcast.